What is the latest on the Josh Primo situation? And it's time to ask Keldon versus Vassell, who is emerging as the team's go-to guy.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Happy Monday. Y'all ready for the work week? I'm not, but I'm pretty sure y'all are not too. It's, the Monday's blues, man. But we'll help you get through the start of your work day. What are we talking about today? We're going to give you the latest updates on the Josh Primo Spurs situation, what has happened since we last did the last podcast with San Antonio Sports Stars Mike Jimenez on the topic. And then we're also going to dig into this one, Keldon versus Vassell. Maybe early, but which player might be shining bright as far as the Spurs go-to guy? To do that, I am joined by, and finally, it's been a long time. The man is just so busy. He does everything for the Sports Star. He is James Pledger. James, welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Thanks, Jeff. It has been a hot minute.
And it's not for efforts of trying to get you on. You just got a lot of stuff on your plate right now at the Star.
Yeah, things are picking up and everything's going really good. So
yeah,
busy is good.
I had a couple of people ask me like, "Where's James playing?" I mean, like I'm trying, I'm trying to work with the schedule, but we got things all squared away. We got him right back here. Hopefully, this won't be another come on and then weeks later you come on again and we're like, where's he been? So hopefully we'll get you back on some sort of regular rotation here.
I'm actually wearing a shirt from Bear County Social Apparel, the Arthur Fist, and it says Team Tank versus Team Play In.
Yeah. And we know which side you're on, so you made it very loud and clear. And you're probably not happy to the start of the season for those reasons, Mr. Captain of Team Tank.
Hey, look, I assume that this team would have some struggles the way that they have basically tore it apart, and the young guys are getting to play. It's a lot of what we wanted to see a couple of years ago. Finally, let the young guys run. They're doing that.
Exactly. Well, before we dive into the Primo stuff, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, James, let's get this out of the way first. Let's catch everybody up on the Josh Primo situation. Just a recap, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows now.
Something happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you may. If anybody on this planet may not have known about it, would be Pledger, because he had himself a wild time out in Houston. Maybe he will regale
a story later on. That dropped as I was in an Uber to the bar.
You're like, whoa, even more. Oh you're like, whoa, even more to drink now. So, but since the last time we did Locked On Spurs, it was just when the news dropped that the Spurs had waived Primo. At that recording, we did not know what had forced the Spurs to part ways with their number 12 pick back in 2021. Since then, news has emerged via ESPN and The Athletic. Josh Primo, the reasons why the Spurs parted ways with Josh Primo is because he allegedly exposed himself to multiple women. The Athletic reports that one of the women was a former Spurs employee. Not good all around. And yeah, that's the latest where it stands. That female former Spurs employee did hire an attorney, Tony Busby, the same one who represented Watson out of Houston, Texas during that fiasco with him. So, James, not a good way to start this episode, but we got to talk about it. It's front and forward. Your thoughts on how everything is going on right now between the Spurs and Primo?
I mean, it kind of works out that I'm on this episode being a Texans fan and having already gone through this with Tony Busby.
You have experience in this type of player issue, but well, then let's go with that. Obviously, I think the Texans and the Spurs 180 as far as running the organization. But yeah, first of all, did the Spurs make the right move to just cut all ties? And I mean all ties with Primo.
I mean, there's there's probably the right thing to do, which is what they did. And then there is the nobody around the league, from what we were gathering. It's like, wow, it must have been bad if the Spurs cut him like that. We are, trying to figure out what's going on, because I saw anonymous GMs and executives talking about that on the way to the bar, because we're trying to, put things together. And while it may not have been the right thing to do, I mean, the attempt to trade him and get something in return, the way that the Texans did with Watson, I mean, there are two different ways of handling things, but you would always like to receive at least some kind of compensation. But it would have been kind of dirty, underhanded pull. At least everybody knew about the Watson situation when they were trying to trade him, and still managed to recoup value for him despite that. Two different types of players. Deshaun Watson, one of the top quarterbacks in the league, is a premium position in the NFL. Josh Primo is, while there's potential, I mean,
still
nothing actualized on the court with him. So it's how you want your organization run, I guess. And it was the stand-up thing to do, is to not try and fleece the rest of the league, and to make their statement quick and efficient. And look, we're done cutting our hands. This is beyond reprehensible, and we will not tolerate that here with the San Antonio Spurs. And they sent a message in doing so by parting ways with a number 12 overall pick from just last year.
Yeah, and the decision to part ways with Primo was fast and just wow. Everybody felt blindsided. I spoke to some of my sources, and usually they're pretty good with information. This is one of the rare times where my sources said, Jeff, not even we know, and everybody else that we know have no idea what was going on at that time. So that's how, fast and furious it was. I mean, even the usual suspects, your Sharanias, your Wojnarowskis, they didn't even report it. I mean, it just, boom. I mean, the Spurs just dropped it on everybody. But you look at what he allegedly did, exposing himself to multiple women, one of them being allegedly a former Spurs employee. Not good. It was just so fast, and how much the Spurs didn't want anything to do with the kid. Is they removed him from their online store. The NBA itself removed him from their NBA online store. The Spurs fan shops have nothing to do with Primo. They're erasing as if he never played a game in silver and black, James.
Oh, remember, too, he was the face of the new marketing promotion behind Self and the Austin-based company. And, Josh Primo was being pushed out in front. So the fact that this is an issue that I guess they did not see, even though it was a former team employee that is reportedly filing this lawsuit with Tony Busby, you wonder if there was an HR complaint filed or not, or if she just internalized it and was like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. You speculate, because remember, Busby not only got settlements from 23 of the 24 women that had filed suits against him,
right?
But he also got settlements from the Houston Texans for, I want to say it was upwards of 30 women. So the team itself is, coming down and giving money in those settlements. So you wonder if, because you hear the term multiple women in these reports, A, she's not the only one. B, she might not be the only employee or former employee. C, how many women are we going to, it's going to be like another huge number like we saw with Deshaun Watson, to where, if you remember when it first started happening, there was the 1, and then there was 2, and then, it got up to 9, and just it snowballed.
Mm-hmm.
One person comes forward, and all of a sudden everyone comes forward. So you wonder how bad this is going to be and how many more are going to come out and join this Tony Busby lawsuit against Josh Primo, possibly, and possibly even the San Antonio Spurs.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. We're going to continue talking about Josh Primo and the Spurs and the allegations of Primo exposing himself to multiple women on this episode of Locked On Spurs. Make sure to follow James on Twitter at @IamPleasure, and he is with the San Antonio Sports Star, and he's going to brag about the Saturday morning hangover in just a few minutes. But before we do that, BetOnline is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchup news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on each and every game. As always, BetOnline remains your continuous source for all your sports wagering information with live betting, up to the minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, and boxing and golf. They got the lines right now on the Spurs win totals. Has it changed since the Spurs started off to a good start to their new season? Go check it out at BetOnline. Go to the website today. You got yourself a mobile device, a laptop, a computer, what have you. Whatever you got to do, go to betonline.net right now. It's where the game starts. We're back with James Pledger with the Saturday morning hangover over at the San Antonio Sports Star. We're talking about Josh Primo, and in a little bit, we're going to be talking about Keldon and Vassell. Which player could emerge as the Spurs' go-to guy? James, I look at the situation, and something tells me that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Your thoughts?
It feels like it, just because the word multiple is in there, and usually multiple is something that is going to, it could mean 2, but usually they're talking about, a handful or more when the term multiple is used in situations like this. So it's going to be very interesting to see this happen, because as a Texans fan, I saw it, and it snowballed, and it just kept growing, and you didn't know how deep that rabbit hole went. And Spurs fans, get ready, because this might not be pretty when it starts to actually come out. And then you will start to hear stories and testimonies, because these are women that are going to basically be, they're going to give their accounts, and those accounts become public, of what happened and how it happened. So it's going to get a lot messier before it gets cleaner.
Yeah, I look at what's happening, and it's just so sad that if it does come out to be confirmed, and these are allegations that he did this, then what a wow, and for a 19-year-old kid to see his pro career that hasn't even begun yet to just go down the tubes is just bad. But hey, the Spurs, they have to do what they have to do. They have to cut ties, and we saw that immediately. And I think they viewed him as a big piece moving forward. From the picking up the contract options to seeing, I mean, his face is plastered everywhere in San Antonio with the Self Financial billboards, and in Austin. And Austin, even Austin has those little mobile carts with a self promotion with the Primo's face on it. He was everywhere. So that it was just started. He had signed with Nike in his rookie season. That's probably gone, if it hasn't gone already. It's such a shame. Would you consider this kind of the Spurs' biggest controversy off the court in their franchise history?
It depends how you want to define biggest controversy. There was there's the Kawhi issue. And then what was it? Alvin
Robertson.
Alvin Robertson. And I would say that's a pretty big controversy that he went through. So when it's up there. I mean, in an
Yeah.
organization that doesn't have a whole lot of off the court controversies, it's definitely up there, but
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the biggest. But we
Yeah.
also don't know how deep this well goes right now either. It is
Hmm.
still very early in the process, so
Right.
it could turn out to be that. But as far as the biggest, I'm not ready to go there with it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how this shakes out. It's going to be a while. This may be kind of a dark cloud on the entire season. It's going to come up repeatedly in press conferences. Down the road, more information will probably be leaked or put out there if a lawsuit is filed, where you're definitely going to be reading all the allegations for sure. Not good. I think one of the bigger questions right now is when the Spurs found out, because if you look at the timeline, they must have found out on the road trip that something was down, because
Yeah.
he played heavy
The left
minutes that
glute
yeah,
cramps
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. He played heavy minutes in that first road game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Played great, 20 plus
That they
minutes,
won.
double figure that they won. Then the glute injury happened, and then the Spurs lost. And what was everybody saying afterwards? Oh, we had Primo and Vassell. Maybe it would be a different situation. I don't think the players knew, because Josh Richardson spoke about how the team probably could have won if they were at full strength. He obviously is lumping in Vassell and Primo. So I think something may have happened in that road trip where they found out. Because I think when the Spurs found out, it was going to be key, James.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be very, very key to it. But as far as we can tell, this happened swiftly. Like, there was no wasted movement by the Spurs on cutting ties with Josh Primo. The only question I have in regards to how swiftly they acted was there an HR complaint against him from the former employee? And if so, whatever happened with that? How is that addressed? Those are the lingering questions surrounding the organization, and that could change what we think of how swift their actions really were.
Yeah. Uh, the Spurs did waive him. A team can pick him up today once he clears waivers, and the team obviously
Mm-hmm.
has the financial situation to do that. Do you foresee any team going out and signing Primo, or you think they're going to stay far away from this and for quite some time?
I would imagine teams will stay
Yeah.
away. They're going to do their diligence and try and figure out how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine a team taking it on this soon, while it's the fire's still growing.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be interesting is we all saw how long it took the NFL to discipline Deshaun Watson for his actions, and basically what happened, despite zero convictions, and it was thrown out of federal court twice.
Mm-hmm.
He still got suspended 11 games, but it was very, very slow, and there wasn't a lot of action taken quick enough for what it
Mm-hmm.
seemed fans to do.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting because I've heard zero from Adam Silver on this to this point.
Right.
So I'd like to hear what his reaction is and what the league's reaction to Josh Primo is, because that's another thing. Like, you can pick him up, but you don't know if there's a suspension and how long that suspension is going to be that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to make clear is this issue is far from over. It's not, because as mentioned, the one female former Spur employee lawyered up with BuzzFeed. If he does file a lawsuit and make it official, then it's going to be public and it's going to be out there. I was so upset and I didn't believe it, because when I got the release, I really thought it was a joke. I was about to text some of the Spurs staff that I know and say, okay, good when you got me, happy early, April Fool's Day. I really, truly believed it was fake, or I got some sort of stupid spam that just like, oh man, somebody broke into my email. Here we go. No, it
No,
was
that was my
legit.
first thing, is to see who it came from, and that was because we were trying to figure out if the tweet was real or not, that he
Right.
had been waived. I was like, the account's verified. It was Mark J. Spears, I believe, was
Yeah.
the first I saw of it, and that immediately was like, okay, let me
Yeah.
go check my email as I was in the
Yeah.
Uber, and then I saw the press release
Yeah.
from the actual Spurs, and I was like, oh, wow, this
Yeah.
is real. And I remember the initial thoughts while we had a group chat with the Star going, and a lot of it was outrage and Jimenez especially, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had him on the
Jimenez,
other day. He
Jimenez,
was
yeah. He
venting
lost it.
thoroughly,
Yeah.
like, how do we not get anything for him? This is dumb. And I was like, wait, because this could be bad. Like, the only
Yeah.
reason any of us could come to a conclusion was something must be really, really bad if they just
Absolutely.
went ahead and cut bait like that on Josh
Yeah.
Primo.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, like, walk Jimenez back a little bit, just be like, yo, take a breath, like, understand this isn't because he, like, missed a team flight or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
This
Yeah.
is likely far more serious, which we now know it is far more serious.
It is. Yeah. And again, for the Spurs to literally wipe them off everything, even their social media accounts. That should tell you. And I really believe the Spurs just had recently found out before the news got out, because several fans who went to the that home game against Chicago were noticing that there were some lingering, advertisement with Primos and video montage with Primo still on it. But for the most part, they did. Many Spurs fans contacted me and said, like, "Hey, I'm at the game, and he's gone. Like, he's 90% wiped out of this whole arena." So yeah, it was pretty interesting. But we're not done talking. We're going to get to the KJ and Vassell and wrap up this Primo discussion in just a few seconds. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. We're back with James Pledger. He's with the San Antonio Sports Star and host of the Saturday Morning Hangover. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at I am Pledger. So let's go to wrap up the latest. So once again, there have been allegations via ESPN and The Athletic that multiple women allegedly say that Primo exposed himself, one being a former San Antonio Spurs worker. So, yeah, it's heartbreaking in one sense to see a 19-year-old kid just, as of right now, seemingly throwing away an entire NBA career. There's only so
Mhm.
many spots available, in the NBA. It's not like the NFL where there's multiple spots. So he was promising. The Spurs truly believed in him, picking up the contract options for year 3 and 4. What he did marketing wise. Fans loved him. I mean, remember his rookie year, fans were cheering for him, wanting him to get out there and play on the court. Primo, you would hear in the AT&T. And
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of Spurs fans were upset. They're, just shocked. I think this shocked feeling is going to be lasting for a little while, James.
Yeah, this shock is not going anywhere anytime soon. This is going to linger probably throughout the season, because
Yeah, I agree.
this is, not a great look. I mean, there's Keldon's a hit, Vassell's a hit, but Samanich, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
waived. Primo,
Lonnie Walker, yeah,
2021, waived.
waived,
Lonnie Walker, just not
not
with the team
re-signed.
anymore.
Yeah, just not re-signed. Yeah,
I mean, there's some misses in the Spurs' recent draft class, and when you're about to rebuild the way they are, you would like to see more hits than misses. Now, the
mm-hmm.
hits are big hits. Keldon seems to be
Yep.
on his way to becoming a a star, and Devin Vassell has taken an incredible leap in his second year. So those two do look like they are going to be a huge part of what the Spurs are going to be moving forward throughout the rest of, their tenure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Sohan now seems to be kind of starting to get the flow, get the things a little bit off to a little slow start. But keep in mind, he didn't play at all for either Team Poland, he could have, or the Spurs Vegas Summer League team. So far, God, I'm thinking about this Primo stuff. 3 promising Spurs draft picks. But yeah, if you do a kind of a weight scale, you look at the last few first round picks, and well, that's why they call it a rebuild. You got to see which player is going to work out. And I'm glad you brought up Vassell and Keldon. So let's go to table this Primo discussion, because James, I'm pretty sure it's going to pop its head up again, and we'll talk about it here on Locked On Spurs. But young season, I get that. I get it. But a lot of the focus, one of the storylines, I should say, coming into the new season was, where's Keldon and Vassell? Where they're going to be their next steps. And everybody was looking at Vassell, like he's obviously going to take a big step, and so far he has. And Keldon seems to be just a monster out there on that court, just beastie, looking like Broly from DBZ. But and before we continue, everybody, we are recording this before yesterday's Minnesota game, so keep that in mind. But I gotta ask you, with the way these two players are playing right now, and this is a good problem to have. But when it comes down to crunch time, let's say the game's on the line, who could likely emerge as that Spurs go-to guy? Is it KJ or is it Vassell? Your thoughts?
The go-to guy right now seems to be Keldon Johnson. And the good news is, I mean, in the NBA, you need multiples, right?
Yeah.
You need multiple players in order to get to where you want to go. So why can't the answer be just yes? Keldon and Vassell are both go-to guys. Keldon is averaging over 20 points a game. I think he can be in the 22 to 25 point range when all is said and done. And Vassell is just shy of 20 points a game right now. So they combined, yes, are go-to players for the San Antonio Spurs. And I do believe it all runs through them. The team is centered and being built around Keldon and Devin. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like both of their games. They complement one another very well, and they do help space the floor. Keldon has really improved on his three-point shooting. We saw it last year, and he's shooting very well from three this year as well. And Devin Vassell he's added to his game to where you're seeing him put the ball on the floor and be able to create more than you were last season. So that was a big step forward for him. And that's, if you're going to be a go-to guy, you have to be able to create for yourself. And both of those guys are doing that right now. So not to belittle the question of who the go-to guy is, I think they both are.
Yeah, they are. You look at the numbers, it's very close. Points per game, you mentioned a little over 20 for Keldon. It's 23.7 as of this recording. Vassell, 19.8. He's right there on the cusp of 20 per game. Rebounding is close. Both average 5. Vassell averages an assist more, 3.5 for Keldon. Vassell, 4.5. Steals, they both are about 1. Blocks, that's where Johnson has a slight edge. I'm sorry, not blocks. Shooting, just shooting overall, 44% for Keldon. And for Vassell, 40. And then 3-point shooting, again, Johnson, 42%. Vassell at 39%. Look, both good shooters. Obviously, the numbers showing it. Again, it's still a very young season. But, yeah, it's a group problem to have. If the game's on the line and you got two guys that can create their shot and can get to the rim like Keldon can, or break down a defense like Vassell can, yay, way to go, Spurs. You got yourself a a 1-2 punch there. Who would you consider maybe kind of like a dark horse go-to guy on this roster in this early season?
Uh, the the dark horse go-to guy,
Yeah.
Jay
So I
Rich.
got okay. You took the. I was about to say I go. I was going to say Jay Rich, or is it safe to say maybe Trey Jones? Trey Jones has been having a low key great start to the season.
No, he's had a fantastic start to the season, and the way he's played, being a second round pick, I mean, you can argue that what Trey Jones brings to the table made the Josh Primo decision even easier for the Spurs than it already was, because they do have a guy. He was starting. He is playing extremely well. Like, all of these things have led to this point, and I think Trey Jones has taken a good step forward. And I remember talking to you about it before the season, and I was whether there was team tank or team play, and I was like, the best point guard on this team, the way it's constructed,
Mhm.
is Trey Jones. It's going to be interesting to see who starts and who doesn't, because if this is about rebuild and building for the future, you would have assumed Josh Primo let the young
Yeah.
guy learn on the job. If they're trying to win games, Josh Primo is their starting point, or
Yeah.
Trey Jones is their starting point guard, because he is just the better point guard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Jones has been kind of an early, very early season Spurs MVP for this team. 13.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 4.8
Yeah.
assists,
Mm-hmm.
1.5 steals. I mean, playing clean basketball.
Yeah.
About 2 fouls a game. That's it. He gives you about a rebound.
He has played extremely well, but
Yeah,
if we're MVPing it, you know,
yeah. It's Keldon and Vassell or one of those guys.
it's
Yeah,
Keldon and Vassell.
yeah, exactly. But I'm just, I'm not saying I'm surprised at Trey Jones. I just didn't think he would come on the scene this strong, once he got the starting nod. I mean,
Yep.
not bad for a second round pick. And he's among the league leaders in hustle stat as far as loose ball recoveries. He's in the top 10. At last check, it's like 20 plus right now. So he's doing it all for the Spurs, showing that heart. Popovich compared him to Manu. He just said that the style of play that want to, he said he saw that in Manu, he sees that in Trey. So that's a high, high accolade from
Yeah.
Popovich. Yeah. But all in all, yeah, it's a good problem to have. Johnson or Vassell, who are you going to go to? Yeah, pick your poison. Go for it. Vassell, great. Johnson, great. We'll see how this shakes out as the season goes on. But hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about the Primo situation and the latest developments? Your thoughts. Where do you stand? What the Spurs did, and what do you think about the what allegedly Primo did? Let us know who you think is the go-to guy. Is it KJ? Is it Vassell? Is it somebody else we didn't bring him out? Is it Zach Collins? No, I'm just kidding. We'll definitely see this pop up and be looking at this storyline as the season goes on. And James, time for you to brag about the star. Tell us.
San Antonio Sports Star, we got it all going on right now. Of course, every week during football season, we have, starting on Mondays, the head coach of the UTSA Roadrunners, Jeff Traylor, and then Thursdays we have Stephen Jones, the EVP and COO of the Dallas Cowboys. And on Fridays, we get the Cowboys head coach, Mike McCarthy. So we have got it all for you all throughout the week. Of course, it starts with R&R in the morning from 7 in the morning until 10. Then Mike Jimenez, frequent of the show, of course, here on Locked On Spurs. He gets it going from noon to 2 to carry you through your lunch hour with halftime. And finally, Jason Minix and Joe Reinig will bring you all the way home from 4 to 7 with the Blitz. And we will be carrying the World Series games throughout the World Series, as the Houston Astros are trying to win a title right now. So Game 3 of the World Series will be on Monday night, and Game 4 will be on Tuesday night.
I'm assuming you're ready to celebrate a Astros championship, right?
Oh, I'm so ready, man. Game one kind of hurt, but getting the game 2 split by taking game 2 on Saturday night was money. So it's good to go back into Philly and have a chance to, get this thing back because the depth of the Astros starting pitching is obviously one of their strengths and where they will help battle teams. It's not just their bullpen, it is their starting unit because they can go 4 deep, 5 deep on starters if they need to, while most teams can only roll out about 2 aces, 2 Cy Young type players. Well, the Astros have the top 2 contenders for the American Cy Young and Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez, and then they'll get Lance McCullers going on Monday night, and then they can go Luis Garcia in game 4, which, when you're getting to your 4th starting pitcher and you can roll someone out like Luis Garcia, that's a big problem for other teams because they just don't have the depth of starting rotation that the Astros do. So I'm very excited about this, obviously, and want to see a title return to H-Town.
This just turned into Locked On Astros right now. The last segment of the Locked On Spurs. It just turned into Locked On Astros. But hey, like I said, we're done talking. We definitely want to hear from you, but we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. Make your second listen for today. Check it out. It's Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter, the biggest storylines in sports, they go beyond the scoreboard, as mentioned. So go check out Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Same thing for Locked On Spurs. Available on this app, YouTube, the Kens 5 Plus app, just wherever you get podcasts. So for James Astros Pledger, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.